giaceva, e sempre giaceva, e sempre giaceva.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining today's session on integrating financial literacy with artificial intelligence and web-based tools. If you could just let us know in the chat that you're here, let us know where you're joining us from. I'm going to be engaging with you all through the chat, so this is a good way to start us off. So, as we know, adult learners make important financial decisions every day. These decisions affect housing, they affect transportation, work opportunities, family responsibilities, independence, and long-term stability. So as educators, we have the fortunate opportunity to support learners not only in developing academic, language, and professional skills, but also in strengthening the financial knowledge, confidence, and decision-making skills that affect their everyday lives. So in today's session, we will explore how financial literacy can be integrated into our adult education instruction and how AI and web-based tools can support meaningful and real-world learning. So our focus today is going to be on practical strategies that you can apply directly in your classrooms and programs. So just seeing here, all kinds of good people are with us today, from Florida to New York City, Massachusetts, all kinds of different places, right? So welcome everybody and happy spring. My name is Ramin Yazdanpana, and my focus is to help educators apply research-based strategies in your adult education programs, right? To support your learners in their learning, in their life and professional goals, and in all of our professional learning and growth. Everything we explore today is meant to connect directly to the needs of adult learners and the work you do every day. The strategies are meant to be practical, flexible, and grounded in instructional design and adult learning theory. The goal isn't to add more to your plate, to your full plate, but to really help to see how financial literacy can naturally live inside the skills that you are already teaching. So before we jump into the presentation slides, a few quick reminders. As you know, your microphones are muted, so everyone will be in listen-only mode during the presentation. If you have any questions at any point, you can use the Q&A feature to submit them. As I mentioned before, we're going to use the chat feature a lot, as you all already are doing. And this session is being recorded, and the recording will be available on the IPDAE website within 48 hours. As well, the slide deck. So our objectives today are to identify strategies for integrating financial literacy into adult education instruction, to apply AI and web-based tools to design interactive, real-world financial literacy activities, to draw on learner strengths such as entrepreneurship, prior business experience, to enhance engagement, explore examples and best practices of financial literacy instruction, and adapt financial literacy resources to meet your learners' specific and immediate needs. So again, the aim is to help you leave the session with practical ideas that can strengthen both learning and real-life outcomes for your students. Let me know if those objectives sound good to you and if you're excited as I am. Yes, thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. Excellent. So an overview of what we'll cover. We'll begin by clarifying what financial literacy means and why it matters so much in adult education. We'll also explore the strengths that adult learners already bring when it comes to financial decision making. From there, we'll look at examples of how financial literacy can be integrated into adult education instruction through approaches such as contextualized learning, project-based learning, and problem-based learning. We'll also explore how AI tools can support instructional planning and creativity, right? Both for us as educators and our learners. And finally, we will review resources that can support financial literacy instruction in your classroom. So a little bit of a curated archive resource list for you to explore further. And we'll take a look at some of those throughout the presentation as well. Okay, so defining financial literacy. Financial literacy is often described as understanding money or financial concepts, but in adult education, it goes deeper than that. Financial literacy involves confidence, knowledge, and skills needed to make decisions that support stability and long-term well-being. It means being able to manage day-to-day financial responsibilities while also planning for future goals. And when we can integrate financial literacy into our instruction, we're helping learners build practical capacity that supports their independence and success beyond the classroom. So financial literacy rests on these three interconnected areas. The first is confidence, right? Learners need to believe they're capable of making financial decisions, okay? So that confidence is so important to address first, knowing that they have the agency to learn and to make financial decisions that can shape their life, right? So the second is knowledge, understanding how financial systems and tools work. So we're going to be discussing some of that, how to source some of that knowledge and how to integrate that knowledge. And then of course, skills, right? The ability to navigate financial systems and to take action. So this strong kind of financial literacy instruction can help learners develop all three areas together so they leave not only informed, but also empowered to act. Okay, great. I'm glad we have so many experts here, right? So many amazing educators. And please, as we go through this, if you have any additional ideas, thoughts, or just you want to throw out a yes, amen, go for it. Okay, I appreciate you all being here. Nice, and Harold added a nice habits and behaviors, right? So those are all good that can be integrated as well. And so let's continue to define financial literacy skills. So these can involve a set of core transferable skills. Okay, so these can include processing and analyzing information, communication, problem solving, self-awareness, right? So that can be a little bit of what Harold was mentioning there about self-awareness of like habits and our own behaviors, financial behaviors. Critical thinking, right? Critical thinking about financial decisions, budgeting, resources, right? All of these things involve critical thinking. Navigating systems, right? How to navigate banking systems, how to navigate investing decisions, budgeting plans, right? All these different kinds of systems that seem to kind of multiply every day. And on also how to, I would say, prevent things from happening, right? As far as like scams. So understanding what systems are legitimate and which those that are not. And then of course, adaptability and willingness to learn. So that is something that is so key that we discussed also in this kind of like mindset, right? Understanding the if we go back here, the kind of confidence, right? Understanding that we do have the capacity to always learn and grow. As adult learners, we can draw on our experiences, right? To learn from them, but also to kind of compare and contrast and what we need to learn in order to continue to grow, and specifically in this area of financial literacy. So here's some qualities of financial well-being. So ultimately, the goal of financial literacy is financial well-being. And financial well-being means having control over everyday finances. It means having the ability to absorb unexpected financial challenges. It can also mean staying on track toward financial goals. And ultimately, it means having the freedom, right? The agency to make choices that improve the quality of life, for our learners, for themselves, for their families, for their communities, for their extended families. So these outcomes align closely with the mission of adult programs, which aim to support self-sufficiency, opportunity, and long-term stability, right? So this is a nice kind of way to frame some of this financial literacy, where it's really about financial well-being and supporting that in a sustained way that has spillover effects to other areas of well-being. So that brings us to why financial literacy matters, right? So before we kind of jump into that, let's take a moment to reflect. Think about the learners that you work with. What financial decisions, obstacles are they facing right now, right? These might involve housing, childcare, transportation, employment, credit, budgeting. If you could just take a moment just to share in the chat, one word about, an area of financial decisions that your learners may be facing right now. So if you could share that in the chat, that would be nice. Okay, so we have employment. Yes, employment in all caps, I will say. Many of us are in that boat, right? Navigating employment and variability in employment. Interest rates, yeah, what do those mean, right? How do interest rates affect how we save, how we invest, what we pay? Paying bills with less money, yeah, how to navigate that problem scenario, right? Of the bills keep on coming in, and there can be times of variability in income. Yeah, all that you listed, and zero money coming from the prison system. Okay, so those are how do you navigate financial planning for the future, right? How do we develop financial literacy so when learners who are in correction facilities, when inmates are in correction facilities who are going to be released, how can they prepare for that world where there's going to be all these financial responsibilities that may not have not been there while they were in the corrections system, but that they're going to be faced with immediately. So preparing for that. And then, all the things, right? Debt, balancing work with school, basic bills, all these things. Thank you all so much for sharing those contributions. So a bit more about rationale. One, financial stress directly affects learning, persistence, and workforce success. We all know this. So I'm sure many of us can relate to that, right? When we're stressed financially, it has a spillover effect to all other areas of our life and our well-being. Recent national studies consistently show that a large portion of US adults struggle with budgeting, paying bills on time, and absorbing unexpected expenses, right? Financial strain can compete with attention, with planning, with follow-through, skills required for successful learning and program completion. And for adult learners, balancing work, family, and education, financial instability is not a side issue, right? It can be a barrier or a pathway to persistence and to success. So dealing with this, head on, and really having the financial literacy as an aspect of our instruction can really help actually the learning process, even if it might be not directly related. Another point is that many adults never received formal financial education, right? Large-scale national surveys continue to show that most adults were never taught practical financial decision-making in school, after school, or at work. Okay, adult education programs are often the first structured learning environments where learners can safely and supportedly build these skills alongside literacy, language, and numeracy skills. In addition to that, multilingual learners face additional barriers navigating U.S. financial systems. So limited English proficiency, unfamiliar financial vocabulary, complex systems, right? Financial systems can increase the risk of misunderstanding, exposure to fraud and scams, and also just missed opportunities, right? That are available and maybe our students don't know exist. So this also makes financial literacy a natural and powerful context for ESOL instruction, where language learning and system navigation happen together. And also financial literacy is not just knowledge, it's applied skill and confidence. So as I previously described, financial literacy is the confidence, knowledge, and skills needed to make informed financial decisions that promote stability and well-being. So this aligns directly with adult education goals of self-sufficiency, problem solving, critical thinking, and navigating often complex systems. So the key takeaway here is that financial literacy is not just like extra content, right? It's a high impact context for teaching, reading, math, language, communication, and workforce skills. So let's discuss a little bit learner strengths as the starting point. So let's chat about this. So it's important to recognize that the strengths that our learners already bring, right? Effective financial literacy instruction begins by recognizing and building on these strengths. So in the chat, if you could share a financial strength that you have observed with your learners. So if you could share that in the chat. What have you observed that our learners are really good at, in the area of financial literacy? Okay, so we have one here, stretching limited income. So really knowing how to budget, right? How to make limited income meet the basic needs, okay, of things like groceries, rent, maybe even savings, maybe even supporting additional family members. What are some other strengths that you've observed with your learners? Yeah, so another contribution here, some get very few dollars a week or a month and they seem to meet the basic needs. I mean, that's we could learn something if we were applying budgeting planning, right? How can we make a limited or a variable budget meet the needs of families? And then also navigating services, right? Like, how to find services, how to research for services, how to access them, okay? And this is where, some learners are gonna have certain strengths that other learners can benefit from. So these are really opportunities to continue to cultivate our communities of learning, in the classroom, to really focus on agentic and learner-centered instruction, to draw right on the skills, the knowledge, the experiences that our learners bring to really make instruction and learning better, right? And really kind of to take some of the burden off of us as instructors. And deals, right? Where to get deals. I love deals, right? Coupons are great too. So navigating that. So just so many great ideas are coming to mind, right? We're asking learners to bring in coupons, bring those in, share them, and really take the time to kind of like think about how, planning and price comparison is important. I think about this all the time. It's like, where are the deals, right? Where should we source things like groceries, depending on what our grocery lists are. So you can just see, very quickly and easily how this ties into so many different areas, okay, of literacy, language, math, right? Problem solving, budgeting, planning, critical thinking, all of the things that we've been discussing here. Thank you. Thank you for those contributions. So building on strengths, so let's look a bit more closely at the kinds of financial strengths that many learners already bring. So many learners manage household budgets, not only where they are, but really across countries and currencies. So oftentimes our learners are not only supporting their families here, in the US, but they're also supporting family in other countries, right? Across different currencies. So discussing that and leveraging those kind of skills. Others run small businesses or informal enterprises. I always see that with my adult learners, that they have small businesses, side hustles, things that they are leveraging to meet the needs of their communities as well as to supplement income. Okay, so I think this is more of the norm, oftentimes, especially my experiences living internationally and living here in the US, and I think this is becoming more the norm here in the US, as well as having these kind of small businesses, side hustles, additional income streams. Many of our learners have navigated job changes. How do they deal with that, right? What are aspects that they can help them support when a job, changes, right? When they need to find new employment, fluctuations in income, and just kind of unexpected financial challenges. So these are opportunities for us as educators to also share our stories, so that they understand that this is not just, something that they are dealing with, but many of us, if not all of us, right, deal with and should kind of be engaged in our financial literacy collectively. So all of these experiences involve problem solving, prioritization, decision making. And when we begin instruction by acknowledging these experiences, learners are more likely to engage in the conversation and connect new ideas to what they already know. Effective literacy instruction does not assume learners lack experience. Instead, it honors their lived experience and expands their ability to navigate financial systems with confidence. And I would say that's for all of us, right? We all are expanding our knowledge and our ability to navigate financial systems with greater confidence. So some best practices, right? So there are several best practices that can make financial literacy instruction more meaningful and effective for adult learners. This is not an exhaustive list, so please feel free to continue to contribute additional best practices that can be added to this list. So first, starting with learners' real context, not necessarily abstract financial concepts. So for example, instead of beginning with definitions of budgeting terms, we might start with a discussion, such as what are the most important bills you have to pay each month? And then you can start to build the lesson around those real examples. Second, know your learners so you can bring relevance to the experience. So for instance, many of your learners work hourly jobs with fluctuating schedules. You might design a lesson around planning a budget when income changes change, right, from week to week. Third, use storytelling to clarify difficult concepts. So we might want to introduce a scenario about an employee or a worker deciding whether to accept a new job in another city, and ask learners to compare, right, the salary with the cost of housing, the cost of transportation, right? All of these different things, uprooting, right, to a new location. How does that impact family and community? So we can use kind of like storytelling in this sense, share our experiences with this. Fourth, provide scaffolding through examples and sentence frames. So for example, learners might use sentence frames such as this expense is important because, so we can provide that sentence starter and then they can complete it. Or I would choose this option because, right? Again, that's just kind of scaffolding and providing some support to facilitate the discussion, and in this case also communication and language skills. Fifth, emphasize decision making rather than searching for a single correct answer. This is so important, right? And if any of us in a literacy, financial literacy journey, we understand that it all depends, right? It depends on our financial situation. It depends on our financial goals. Can also often depends on our family size, on our age. All of these different things affect decision making. So, different learners might make different choices in budgeting scenarios based on their priorities, and both decisions can lead to valuable discussion. Six, pay attention to language and tone when discussing money. Instead of asking learners to share personal financial details, you can use fictional scenarios or sample budgets to keep the conversation respectful and safe. So that's a consideration, right? We need to keep in mind is like safety around discussing financial matters. And, keeping it anonymous, keeping it fictitious, it can also, enable learners to feel a little bit more confident in engaging in the activity. Seventh, set clear boundaries when teaching skills rather than offering personal financial advice. If you've ever seen any kind of like financial videos on YouTube, oftentimes you'll say, hey, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just providing some information here, right? Or even entertainment. So it's something to kind of like always, state that it's like, look, as educators, we're not providing financial advice, we're providing a context in order for learners to explore, to critically analyze, and to apply frameworks and skills that are gonna benefit their financial literacy, as well as are connected to these other areas of adult education that they are focusing on. Eighth, build transfer beyond the classroom. You might ask learners to track their spending for one day or read a receipt and identify the costs, right? Helping them apply skills on real life situations. So, some kind of action research, right? And that can be really fun, right? To get everyone to say, okay, let's just track our spending. So many of us have never done that, right? Or don't do that often enough. And spending can change. As prices go up, as inflation, happens, as different prices of things increase or decrease, right? As income fluctuates, how does that affect our spending and our budgeting? And finally, respect privacy, right? Again, protect personal information. Encourage learners to work with sample scenarios rather than sharing sensitive financial details. And this also connects to that aspect of like being really careful about sharing personal and financial information outside of the classroom too. If someone is randomly calling them, or if they get a text message or they get an email, these scams are getting better and better, right? And more realistic, okay, by the day. So, really preparing them and putting our learners in that state of mind of like being cautious can save from great disaster, great financial disaster, right? And that is true, more and more true, the older and older also that we become. So together, these practices can help create financial literacy instruction that is practical, respectful, and empowering for adult learners. All right. So we're going to watch a teacher demonstration of financial literacy on a budgeting lesson to model really best practice. I've found as my work and as a teacher educator, you all, right, really benefit from kind of seeing these, some of these strategies that I've been discussing in practice. So let's take a look at that, right? Let's watch this brief classroom example. It's about 5 minutes. And as you watch, consider how the instructor connects financial topics to learners' real life experiences. Also notice how reading, math, and discussion are integrated within the lesson. And notice how this example highlights how financial literacy can be taught in ways that are engaging, practical, and meaningful. Okay.
I might need bus fare. Okay.
Let me know if you all can hear that on your end.
Groceries. Groceries, good. I thought, does nobody eat but me? Okay. Groceries.
Electricity.
That's your number one expense?
Yeah.
And electricity
Gas.
and gas, and here we pay gas. Which of these would be fixed expenses?
Rent. Maybe rent.
Probably rent. Yeah.
Phone.
So some bills, for example, a phone bill could be, yeah. So we'll put a star there, phone bill might be. What about gas?
Sometimes change.
It changes, right?
Yeah.
Because the price can go up or down.
Depend when I to use.
Yeah. And the more you use,
Yeah,
the more
you need to
pay.
pay more.
Yes. What about groceries?
Two.
You
No.
can fix, yes, so you could fix it.
Using coupons.
You could use coupons, yeah, that's true. But at the same time, no one tells me, here's your grocery bill every month, right? So I kind of decide.
Now, let's hear from a student who experienced the financial literacy lesson.
Financial lessons are helpful for me because financial systems are very different in the US than in my country.
Second, respect the privacy and protect personal information of your students.
Some learners may be uncomfortable discussing personal financial issues. Discern when to use mock data for group discussions and when it might be appropriate for learners to use personal information for independent learning activities.
Kate used to worry about money. By the end of the month, little remained. Making a budget has helped. Kate now knows where her money goes. She knows what she needs to save. She feels more in control. Okay. So who is this story about? Kate. Kate. Okay. What is Kate's problem? Money to pay bills? Yeah. Do you have any problems like that, like Kate does? Yes. Yeah, I do. Always? Yeah, I do sometimes, yeah.
Third, use storytelling to introduce topics or clarify difficult concepts. Telling a story is an effective way to introduce financial concepts and position personal finance topics in context. Stories provide learners with points of reference for the discussion, especially when covering difficult concepts.
What does the story tell us about what has helped Kate to feel more in control? So she has a plan for saving and spending. Yeah. Is there a word up here? Budget. Yeah. So making that saving and spending plan or budget has helped her to feel more in control. What are some examples from the text? Yeah. So we've got cable, phone, rent.
Let's hear from another student who experienced the financial literacy lesson.
In the class, teacher not ask personal the question. Teacher use the example. My teacher use example. This situation is help me understand the lesson because I connect the real life example to my own life.
Lastly, pay attention to language and tone. Avoid language that might be perceived as judgmental relative to socioeconomic status. Promote language that inspires and empowers. For example, when discussing options to manage a particular situation, substitute could for should to emphasize choices rather than to impose personal values onto others.
A budget is how we plan our expenses together with our income to make sure that our income is enough for our expenses, or that our expenses are not more than our income. Yeah? Sometimes my expenses are more than my income. Is that true for you guys? Yeah, sometimes.
Financial literacy is important for adult learners because not everyone receives financial education. Their daily actions impact financial circumstances. Consumers face complex decisions. Financial stress affects health and work performance. And limited English and cultural differences can pose barriers to financial success. Consider embedding financial literacy into your adult education classroom as a way for students to practice literacy and numeracy skills, as well as exercising crucial life skills.
Let's hear one last reflection from a student about financial literacy lessons.
Financial lessons connected to my life because money is so important here. I need to understand prices, sales, banks, and everything to support my family.
Thank you for.
Okay, please let me know if that video was helpful. I think it's always nice to kind of see theory in action, right? To see some of these practices in action. It's also so nice to hear from learners, right? To see, it really like reinforces it, right? When we hear from learners and see how it impacts our learners' learning. So, of course, the link to this video, Teaching the Skills That Matter, Financial Literacy in Action, that you can access this video to watch it again, as well as some other resources that I'm going to share with you here shortly. So great, thank you. I'm glad that you found that video helpful. Okay, so there are several instructional models that work particularly well for financial literacy instruction. These aren't all of them, but these are three that I'm presenting here today. So the first is integrated and contextualized learning. And it uses financial scenarios to reinforce academic skills such as reading and math. So here's an example here. Financial contexts are used to teach or reinforce reading vocabulary, math discussion skills, or math, and then also discussion skills. So some examples of this are like household cash flow, budgeting, spending decisions. Another here is project-based learning, right? So project-based learning allows learners to investigate financial questions and produce meaningful products. So for example, learners investigate real-world financial questions over time, like what's our spending, over the week or the month, and produce a tangible product, okay? So actually like developing a budget or a plan that can be utilized. So for example, eating healthy on a budget, comparison shopping, planning, some of the things that you all mentioned as well. And then problem-based learning. So problem-based learning presents realistic financial challenges that require analysis and decision-making. So learners analyze a realistic financial scenario, evaluate options, and justify a course of action. So this is really empowering, right? So this can be like, facing a job loss or changing jobs, gaps in income, and planning next steps. Okay, so these are some instructional models, and we can keep these in mind when we're analyzing some resources. So let me just show you here. This is one from this Econ Ed link, and I'm going to provide this in our resources, so don't worry. But you can see here how you can select for personal finance, and then you can see the different topics, okay? So for example, like entrepreneurship, how does energy policy affect gas prices, buying on credit, let's see here, teach producers and consumers, okay? So all kinds of things, personal finance kind of topics. But I wanted to show you here also that you can refine this by different grades. You can also the resource kind of type, and then also the specific subject. And then if you wanted to align these, okay, with these standards that are available. So a really nice resource here on that really are specific here to this like integrated and contextualized learning. And of course, you'll see some of these other instructional models embedded there as well. Also, that video actually I sourced from this website here from Links, and you can see some really nice resources here, such as money management lesson plan, financial literacy, household cash flow, right? So integrated contextualized learning lesson plan, financial literacy, eating healthy on a budget, project-based learning lesson plan, and then also some additional resources, okay? And so if you click on any of these, you can, let's just click on one here with this health one, and you can see how it's really laid out well for some background, how it's aligned to NRS levels, how it's aligned to other standards such as English language standards, mathematics standards, and then some different language demands and some sentence frames that we discussed, some adaptations or accommodations for multi-levels here, and working collaboratively, okay? The class chooses a topic based on a real world issue, so some central skills and materials, and a lot of information here, some links. And then, it just, is a nice kind of lesson plan structure, okay, that you all can adapt, okay, to give you ideas or to actually just implement as is. So the link for all of these I'm going to share. You have to stay with me, okay, to the end, because that's where I'm going to share the link to the resources. So stay with me here. Okay, so using AI for financial literacy learning. So I like to call this this framework. I like to present this framework because oftentimes when we think of AI or artificial intelligence, it's kind of like people think it's just going to do the work, all the thinking and the work for us. And I don't think that's true. It can be that way, but I don't think that's the most effective way to use these kind of technologies. So I'm proposing this kind of framework here of like kind of applying and developing our iterative intelligence to make the use of these AI tools more kind of human centric, okay, and using them more as like assistive intelligence rather than like supplementing, right? Or excuse me, rather than replacing. So if we start here with human intelligence, okay, so we know no one knows better than we do as far as like who our learners are, you know, what their needs are, what we're doing in the classroom. So this is where we leverage our human intelligence. That's our intelligence and that's our learners as well. So this affects the planning process, kind of internal dialogue, external dialogue as well. And once we kind of have an idea and a plan, this is where human interaction can come in. So this can be interactive planning, talking shop, as I like to say. So you are meeting with your colleagues to discuss these topics, right? And these lesson plans, getting their perspective. Just talking about it oftentimes can be helpful for us to think through and to stimulate ideas. And also teacher students, right? Just saying, hey, you know, I want to have more of a, or what do you all think? Do you think we should have more of a focus on financial literacy? Would this be helpful? And if so, what areas would be helpful, right? So it's kind of like conducting a needs analysis survey. And again, that can change, you know, over time. So it doesn't need to be just like a one and done, but how can we integrate this throughout our course? Then we can use assistive intelligence or artificial intelligence to be assistive. And this could be prompting, right? Prompting using dynamic AI tools to refine planning. So it doesn't really matter what AI tool you use. Now that you've kind of engaged with your own human intelligence with this interactive, right, iteration and discussion, that's really going to refine the focus that you can utilize these AI tools for. And then just not taking it for face value, you know, analyzing the prompt, what was generated from the prompt and refining it as needed, okay? So using AI to clarify instructions, it can also help us to move from more general ideas to more kind of instructional precision. And just like Thomas mentioned here, this technique can help us to you know, learn the task, right? And to kind of refine, right, our learning and engagement with the task. So it allows us to kind of take more broader goals and turn them into kind of more clear, actionable learning activities. Through this iterative dialogue, we can analyze learner needs, strengths, goals, and proficiency levels. So we can provide that information as well, making the planning more intentional and more specific to meet our learners' needs and leverage their strengths. It also kind of ensures appropriate challenge without overwhelm. So this can help us with scaffolding, right? Ensuring that our lessons are scaffolded in a way that support our learners. And then most importantly, it really strengthens clarity and alignment through revision. So each iteration, each kind of engagement you have can sharpen objectives, refine tasks, and keep instruction focused on meaningful outcomes. So let's look at these kind of prompt topics here, all right? So this is kind of like an example here of how educators might structure a prompt when using AI to generate lesson ideas. So this prompt defines these different areas, okay, in order to address them. So let's look at these different areas. And if you have any other kind of areas that you think would be important topics in a prompt, feel free to please share them in the chat. So the role, right? Who is this for? So the role can be for us as teachers, whether you be you're a literacy instructor, an ESOL instructor, math instructor, GED instructor, you know, in the setting, right? What kind of context and setting are you in? Are you in corrections? Are you in a kind of, you know, after school or afternoon kind of program? Are you part of a community college program? You know, how often do your learners kind of meet? So all of these kind of details are helpful. Learner profile, right? What are the learners' levels, right, in the different kind of skills that you're focusing on? An instructional approach, right? So what instruction are you using? I said, see the handbook lesson plan. So, here, and this is going to be, this is available to you, as are these slides and the recording. They're going to be available to you on the IPDAE site under the webinars, but I'm just going to scroll down here a little bit, and you can see the prompt here that I'm going to discuss with you here shortly, and that we're discussing now as far as the different roles, and then some additional resources. But I just wanted to scroll down here, excuse my scroll, for these lesson plan templates. So, these are lesson plan templates that you can apply that can help structure, okay, a lesson. So this is the I do, we do, you do. So this is a template that you can download, okay, and utilize in order to structure your instruction. Also the 5E, engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate, another framework for lesson plan. And then we have one more here, the prepare, present, practice, and perform. So it's helpful to see these different instructional templates, okay, to see, and we can mix and match, but to see how to really organize a lesson that's going to support your learners in their learning. Okay, so that's something that you can apply there, one of these lesson plan templates. Any financial literacy focus, right? What's the specific focus? You can pull that from the needs analysis you engage with your learners, or from different kind of resources that we analyzed up here. Required lesson components, if you know what those are, and that would be helpful. Any standards alignment, even if you don't know the specific standards, you can point to standards. IPDAE has a great matrices of for math, reasoning, language arts, and ESOL that you can point to and say, hey, align standards from this matrix as well. That can be helpful to kind of see how the lesson aligns with meeting standards. That can be helpful to reporting, for your reporting as well. Of course, learning objectives, if you need help with developing those objectives, or if you have those objectives, you can input those. Class discussion, right? How do you want to leverage learners' experiences and their background knowledge, draw on them? How do you need to build maybe some knowledge, right? Awareness and skills. Any kind of assessment for learning, an extension activity, and student reflection and feedback. So these are the different kind of like prompt topics that I've included. Please let me know if you can think of any other ones that could be useful. But this is a description. This is an example of these AI prompt roles. It's really for you all to develop your own to meet the needs of your learners. And so let's see here. I'm just going to scroll up here, and so you can see what's available on this handout. So I've developed this prompt example. I've kind of developed it a bit more. Again, you feel free to copy and paste this and adjust it as needed, but you can see here the role, okay, and the description of the role, the task, right, using the, in this case, the I do, we do, you do lesson planning template, right, what we want to reinforce, okay, and again, that can be changed and modified. Learner profile, what are their NRS levels? What are they bringing, right? What are some of their realities, and what are some valuable experiences that they bring? So in the sense, we're kind of applying all of these best practices into this prompt that's going to support us in making sure that as much as possible, we address these areas within our instruction. And then we have instructional approach. So this can be any of those frameworks that we discussed, integrated and contextualized, problem-based or project-based learning models. Okay, emphasizing strengths. Okay, positioning learners as knowledgeable decision makers. Financial literacy foci, so incorporate instruction and best practices. Okay, so that can be modified as well. Required lesson components. So that's there here. Class discussion, right? Building and activating background knowledge. A warm-up activity, guided instruction. This is where it's pulling from that I do, we do, you do template. An extension activity. So how can we extend this beyond the classroom? Assessment for learning. And student reflection, okay? So what did they learn? We saw in the video how it really benefited those learners from like sharing and reflecting on how that financial literacy lesson was impactful to them. And then connection for future learning, right? How this it connects to future lessons, okay? Design requirements, making it simple, avoiding jargon, ensuring accessibility for multilingual and mixed level classrooms, and output format. So if you did nothing else but just copied this prompt, okay, and plugged it into something like ChatGPT or Claude AI, you know, or any other kind of like, you know, AI tools that you're using, that's what I did. I just copied it and pasted it here into ChatGPT just for an example. And then this is the output, right? And so because I didn't put a specific lesson, it kind of created one for me. I said it's for multi-level, so that included that there. And you can see here how this generated, okay, this lesson with objectives for financial literacy, language objectives, math objectives, student learning targets. So you can see how this can be a really helpful tool as an assistant, right? A kind of our own teaching assistant to kind of apply all these areas of best practice into our instruction, and then actually generating some instruction as well. Now, some of you all might have like lessons that you're already using. You can integrate that, right, by uploading files, uploading PDF files, Word files, anything that maybe you've created, okay, to make it specific to those kind of resources as well. And then of course it kind of goes on and on. Always at the end, I know most of these AI tools, it asks you to, you know, also create, but you know, part of that iteration is also you saying, hey, you know, focus more on this, develop more of this area, or no, this is not accurate. You know, you missed this, you need to address this. And so you can push back and it responds, okay, to address that area, right? So you can even vote if it was a good response or a bad response, right? So know that this process is iterative, it's engaging. This is like a teaching assistant that we're using, you know, this artificial intelligence to support our instruction, to make it to where it is just, you know, checking all the kind of boxes, and it's making our job easier, right? I know that we all need support. You know, educators, we're so busy. We're so busy with planning, teaching, providing support, living our own lives, all these things. This technology can really help us to make sure we don't burn out, that we have the energy to focus and support our learners. Okay, and so I'm just looking at the chat here, some other areas to include, add digital productivity tools. Yeah, you know, if you can identify or ask to identify what could be some digital productivity tools, that would be helpful as well. Also, we have here from Thomas, you know, you're a career technical CTE instructor specializing in advanced manufacturing for grades 11 through 12 at the school, right? The specific school. Your responsibilities include aligning instruction with state and national CTE standards. For example, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills and Relevant Industry Certificates, OSHA 10-hour, machining associate standards. Awesome, very specific. That's the point, right? You all know more than I do, or anyone really, kind of what the specific standards are, what your learners' needs are, and how to kind of align instruction. So this is where this human intelligence and human interaction is so important in this, you know, using these kind of AI tools. So thank you, Harold and Thomas, for sharing that. Okay, so as we draw to a conclusion here, I want to ask you, what is one approach or resource from today's presentation that you could apply to support your learners' financial literacy? So even just some thoughts, ideas, anything that came up during our presentation that you could either do more of or maybe try out and experiment with, please share that in the chat. An approach or a resource that was especially helpful to you that you might be able to apply to support your learners in their financial literacy growth. And here are those financial literacy resources. Again, these are all links that you are going to be able to click on and take you to explore more, okay, in all these different areas. A lot of resources there. Just going through these resources, it can really help to see and realize, all the different areas. And also, talking about agentic learning, learner-centered learning, showing these resources to students, integrating them into our lesson plans, and then assigning students to further explore, these resources, some of these digital tools, right? As Harold said, applying them and looking at them and identifying other topics that are especially relevant to them. So that's another part of developing kind of proactive, learners who are understand the learning process and how to apply learning independently is also a big part of leveraging these resources, okay, inside and outside of the classroom. And so, yeah, let me know if you have any questions, any additional comments. I'm looking here. Lori says, real world math or lessons using AI with prompts. Awesome, Lori. I'm glad that was helpful. William, says being specific in our prompts about our students' NRS levels to make sure lessons is appropriate. Awesome. Lori, your question about PD credit by chance, I think that's up to you, whoever's assigning credits for your PD. So check in with them. I think you should, but check in with them, right? And so make sure that you're registered, obviously, for this. Make sure that you are, and our friends at IPDAE says your attendance is logged in your IPDAE portal account, so you can show that. Thank you, Harold. Your input was very helpful. So thank you for your support, my friend. Okay, so yeah, Lori, I think you can reach out to IPDAE. They can help you navigate that a bit. And thank you again for your presence here, for your contributions, really just for investing, no pun intended, investing in your professional growth so you can support your learners' financial literacy skill growth that they can apply for their goals, right? Their academic, their professional, and their life goals. While you are completing that feedback survey, IPDAE is going to be providing the webinar Wednesday. That's tomorrow at 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time. So the topic for tomorrow's webinar Wednesday is going to be Essential Algebra Skills 3, Essential Algebra Skill 3, Solving Linear Equations and Inequalities. You can register for that webinar Wednesday on the IPDAE website on the event calendar. So thank you all so much again. Yes, Lori, I'll provide my email here again for you. And r.yazdanpana@floridaipdae.org. Again, this video, the recording of this video, and the slide deck with access to all the resources and the handouts will be provided to you within 48 hours on the IPDAE site. Okay, everybody, wishing you all the very best.